What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? This is Jeff Benjamin with 9 to 5 Mac. We have it in hand, folks. We have the iPhone 7 in jet black, and we have the iPhone 7 Plus in black. We're going to unbox both of these, talk about some of the good things, some of the bad things. By the end, hopefully, you'll be well acquainted with both of these new devices from Apple. Let's check it out. New storage capacities. Now the base storage starts at 32 gigabytes, which is great. No more 16 gigabytes, no more running out of space immediately. So now there's 32, 128, and 256 gigabytes. So you have the option of one of those three storage capacities. Now there's also two brand new colors. Actually, Space Gray dropped out of the race. Space Gray is no longer with us, folks, but we do have two new colors. We have Jet Black, which is the one that you see in all the press materials, the one that Apple is hyping up the most, the one that's most difficult to find. Here it is, folks. This is Jet Black. This is the iPhone 7 in Jet Black. It is absolutely beautiful. This is the best looking iPhone I've ever seen by far, hands down. And it feels better than any iPhone I've ever felt, hands down. It is really a wonderful looking device, but it does come with caveats. Number one, we'll talk about it in a little while, but it is very susceptible to fingerprints. It's a fingerprint magnet and a scratch magnet as well. So inside the box, you have your standard little power adapter that's underpowered. They should really include a 10 watt or 12 watt adapter in there. You have a pair of lightning enabled ear pods, and you also have this lightning to 3.5 millimeter headphone jack adapter. So they do include that in the box for you, along with the lightning cable, of course, for charging. And you also get your brief documentation along with your stickers. Yes, indeed. You got to have those. It just wouldn't be right without them. All right, so now let's open up the iPhone 7 Plus. Of course, this is the third iteration of the larger iPhone, the largest iPhone, I should say, and it's still heavy and as cumbersome as ever, but it does look good, I will say that. Especially when wrapped in this new black color. This is the new sort of matte black that is a new color option for the iPhones in 2016. Of course, you still get your power adapter, which is, again, underpowered. You get your lightning ear pods, you get your little headphone jack adapter, and you get your lightning cable. All right, so my favorite part of the jet black iPhone, besides its looks, it just looks great when it's not smudged and scratched. So basically, it looks great for the first 5 minutes of ownership, and then after that, yeah, it's all downhill from there. But that's okay because it feels great. It has this really grippy feel. You know how the iPhone 6S and 6S Plus and 6 and all the 6s? Yeah, they tend to slip out of your hand. They're real slippery. There's really no grip involved with the iPhone 6 line. This changes that. This new jet black finish is glorious as far as grip is concerned. It feels better than any iPhone. The only iPhone that comes close to it as far as feel is the iPhone 5C, which felt great in my opinion. It was plastic, of course, but from a tactile standpoint, this surpasses even the iPhone 5C. Now, there's redesigned antenna lines. You remember those lines. How could you forget? The lines that go across the back of the iPhone that are kind of just unsightly, those have been changed. And we all expected this to happen through all the leaks and everything, but seeing it in person really does show how much better this design is. In fact, on the black iPhones, which is probably why Apple decided to go with black this time around, the little antenna lines are almost unnoticeable. Like, especially on the jet black, it just sort of blends in, and you really don't even see it because those antenna lines are dark. So it maintains functionality, but looks great at the same time. Remember how the home button used to be able to be pressed like this, like it actually moved when you pressed it? Yeah, so about that. That no longer happens. Instead, Apple has adopted a new taptic feedback mechanism that allows you to feel when you press the home button. Basically, it emulates a home button click, and you can set 3 different levels of clickiness. Some people have said it feels like you're clicking the entire bottom portion of the phone, but I don't think it feels that drastic. I think it does feel like a home button click, but it is different. And another thing, you're not going to be able to use this with gloves because it actually detects your finger in order to activate the click. So yeah, leave the gloves at home. The A10 Fusion chip is just a ridiculous monster, and Apple continues to steamroll the competition when it comes to chip design, especially when it comes to single-core scores. No one even comes close. The closest Android phone is way down the line somewhere. Even Apple's own iPad Pro, the A9-powered iPad Pro, pales in comparison to the iPhone 7. That is crazy. There's also 3 gigabytes of RAM in the iPhone 7 Plus. So if you opt for the larger model, you're going to get an extra gig of RAM. The iPhone 7 still has 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now, this could be because of that new camera module, which we'll talk about later. Now, the iPhone 7 gets 2 hours of additional battery life, thanks largely in part to that new A10 Fusion processor with its 2 high-efficiency cores. Also, no headphone jack, so room for a bigger battery. You might not even need one of those ugly smart battery cases. Oh yeah, and iPhone 7 Plus owners, you're not left out. You get an extra hour of battery life. For the first time, the iPhone is now officially water-resistant. It's also dust-resistant as well. But water resistance is a headline feature, and of course we tested it out. We placed our iPhone in a bowl of water. Obviously it's not as deep as like a swimming pool or a creek or your local privy, but it illustrates the point nicely that yes, you can now rest easy when your iPhone gets wet. Just make sure to dry it off afterwards. So for the first time, the iPhone now comes with stereo speakers. You have a speaker at the bottom of the device and you have a speaker in the earpiece, and Apple says that these speakers are 2 times louder than before. So let's listen in. Success. Seven. Success. And 7 Plus. Now, one little side note, the Apple Music app does not run in landscape mode, which makes no sense when it comes to stereo sound. Just something I wanted to mention. Now, like the iPhone 6s, you still have a 12 megapixel rear-facing camera, but the sensor is all new. This is a high-efficiency sensor. It is 60% faster, 30% more efficient. It also has larger pixels, so you're going to have better low-light performance. So across the board, the sensor is better in the 7. Now, to complement that sensor, you get an f1.8 aperture, which really does make a difference when it comes to low-light photography. It does make a little bit of a difference when it comes to depth of field as well. But really, where this camera excels is when it comes to low-light photography, because you're going to be able to take shots with a lower ISO than a iPhone 6s, for instance. So you're going to have less noise in lower light. So, for instance, this picture here on a 6s, you can see it's kind of grainy, kind of noisy. Here it is on a 7. Much more clear, even in low light. Now, you also have optical image stabilization across the board for the rear-facing shooter on the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus, of course. The smaller phone has never had optical image stabilization for video or stills, but now you get it. You can see the difference that it makes there. The 6S on the left, the 7 on the right. Makes a huge difference to have OIS. And the great news is that you no longer have to opt for the larger Plus model just to get OIS, because it's built into the 7 and the 7 Plus. Now, you also get a 7 megapixel FaceTime camera that's up from 5 megapixels from last year's model, and you do see noticeable improvements when it comes to image quality here. So there is the 7 megapixel FaceTime camera. Of course, you have that retina flash. You're going to notice that the pictures do look better. On the right side is the iPhone 7, on the left side, the iPhone 6s. Now, that camera bump is now part of the housing. It is actually part of the mode for the case, for the iPhone itself. So it's no longer this afterthought in design. It is now designed as a part of the overall package, and it looks good. I like it. I like the way it looks on the 7, but I especially like the way it looks on the 7 Plus. That looks really, really sweet right there. Now, you also get a quad LED True Tone flash. So basically 4 LEDs that adjust to the color temperature of your environment. Is going to provide you with more accurate looking photos. It's going to provide you with brighter photos in low light conditions, because that flash is 50% brighter. Now, the flagship feature for the iPhone 7 Plus is the new 2x optical zoom feature, which basically switches you from the wide-angle 28mm camera to the 56mm telephoto lens seamlessly right in software. So you have 2 lenses on this iPhone 7 Plus, and they work together to provide you with true 2x zoom. So this isn't digital zoom, although digital zoom does still exist, and it actually piggybacks on the optical zoom to give you 10x digital zoom in photos and 6x digital zoom in videos, but that's beside the point. You really want to stick to either 1x or 2x, because true optical zoom is going to keep all that nice crispy image fidelity. You don't want to really rely on that digital zoom, because that's cropping your image and providing you with a lot of pixelation. Now, Apple says the screen on the iPhone 7 is 25% brighter than before, and I compared it with my iPhone 6s, and to be honest, I really don't see it that well, but I don't have the best eyesight. Both look very bright to me. 25% really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. I guess the 7 appeared to be a little brighter than the 6s, but again, like, the 6s is still a really good phone. It's still really bright, still takes really good pictures, actually. So I didn't really notice that big of a difference, to be honest. That said, I did notice the new wide color display and how it displays wide color photos in a way that really has to be seen to be understood. These two photos are exactly the same, but there's details that you can only discern on the new iPhone 7 because of that new wide color display. Again, you're probably not going to be able to tell this from this video, but I just wanted to talk about it. Now, the camera itself actually shoots in wide color as well, and developers can actually tap into that API. Now, speaking of tapping into APIs, there's a new Taptic engine, and developers can actually support this inside their apps. Now, Apple has added new taptic response throughout iOS. For instance, when you turn these wheels, you get to feel it in your hand because of that new taptic engine. And when you pull down Notification Center, you feel it. When you rearrange lists, you feel it. It's really cool. Now, in case you didn't know, Apple made a big change with the iPhone 7. They killed the 3.5mm headphone jack, but they did include some Lightning-enabled earpods, which look exactly like the earpods you've grown to hate because they fall out of your ears. The only difference is that it terminates at a lightning plug instead of a 3.5mm headphone jack. So literally exactly the same everywhere else except for that little thing at the end. That's a lightning cable, in case you forgot what it looks like, but that's what plugs into your phone now, and that's how you listen to music. But what if earpods cause you to go into fits of rage because they fall out of your ears all the time? Well, there's this. Apple, in all their generosity, has included a Lightning to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter, and this thing's really tiny, by the way. And you can actually buy more of these for $9 at the Apple Store, which is very reasonable, and I applaud Apple for making it reasonable. And all you do is you plug in your headphones that you actually like into this little adapter, and just like that, I've turned this pair of headphones into Lightning headphones. Haha. Now, the iPhone 7 supports the latest iteration of LTE Advance. It now supports up to 450 theoretical megabits per second. Probably not going to get anywhere near that. Yeah, so let's talk about some things that I don't like. Obviously, the headphone jack. I do like the fact that the headphone jack's gone, but I know a lot of you don't like it, so I wanted to include it in this list. There's also Jet Black being exclusive to 128 gigabyte and higher SKUs. So even if 32 GBs is more than enough space for you, you're still going to have to upgrade in order to get Jet Black. But you can still get regular black. And if you damage your iPhone because you got it submerged in water, something that Apple advertises that you should be able to do, you're going to have to pay for that. Unless you get Apple Care Plus, then you don't have to pay as much. Yeah, you're still going to have to pay, just not as much as you would have otherwise. Yeah, keep your phone dry. Now, some of these comments have been a little tongue-in-cheek, but this is something that really bugs me. The OIS feature, which is so great because it stabilizes your photos, it's not available on the iPhone 7 Plus's telephoto lens. So that means that when you use the 2x optical zoom feature on your iPhone 7 Plus, you're going to have to keep the camera extra still in order to take a good photo. Now, Jet Black, as I mentioned, is by far my favorite iPhone design ever, but it is absolutely prone to fingerprints. It's prone to abrasions. Apple even warns us at the bottom in a footnote that you're probably going to want to put a case on it. I just could not bring myself to put a case on this beautiful phone. Now, that iPhone 7 Plus exclusive feature, that bokeh mode that allows you to get that really shallow depth of field when taking portraits, that is a flagship feature, but it doesn't actually come with the iPhone. You have to wait until a software update is launched later in the year. That's disappointing because otherwise, the only big standout feature is optical zoom. And last but not least, this kind of bummed me out. The T-Mobile and AT&T versions of the iPhone 7 are not compatible with Verizon and Sprint. They're basically not compatible with CDMA networks. So that will limit you when it comes to resale, something to keep in mind. So if you want to buy one of these unlocked, I'd opt for the Verizon or the Sprint version. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been my first hands-on look at the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section, and also leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you appreciate this video. Much more to come.